So to start coding, let's do this. So I'll keep this build decision trees for your reference from, I don't want to change it from your previous lab, but we will create a copy here. I'll come here and say save a copy in Drive, right? Opening a new tab, that's fine. So I'll be working off a new notebook so that I don't change the previous notebook, right? So I should be able to run this whole thing. I'll run it all and then I'll go to the end and see when it's done. It'll print this out, right? Let's let it run for a second. Okay, great. So it ran. Our code still works. Congratulations. Well, now let's start building our part. So we will be predicting, right? So we are learning to predict. So I'll create a new section here in the code. I'll call it predict. Right, and the first thing, let's do this. Like we've been writing the script and sort of littering it with a lot of work, how would I say? We were creating variables here and then in different cells. So why don't we do this? Why don't we, in the predict part, just in the cell, have only the variables which we need for the prediction, right? So we the column which we will be using for labels will be cylinders, right? Because we're trying to predict cylinders. That's what we've been building so far. Let's recreate our Y, right? It's our empty cars lab call, right? You see the at the complete AI, I'm still marveling at how good it is, right? So it's doing everything right? So X, in Y we're getting the cylinders, and in X, our predictor variables, we're getting everything else but the cylinders, right? So we're trying to predict cylinders, so as predictors we'll use everything else but the cylinders. That's why it's suggesting us to use the drop, right? So we remember in our algorithm we need the classes, right? Well, this is the code we've been using. Autocomplete kind of knows about it. So what are we doing? We get y variable, right? So all the cylinders, 4, 6, 8, whatever, we will get the unique ones of them and then sort them, because we want to have them in the order which is 4, 6, and 8 from now on, right? We did that. Let's just print them. What's going on here? Yeah, 4, 6, 8, great, right? Now let's create our root node and then train the tree, right? So I'll just do this and then see if it's correct, right? So left, remember we said when we start with a root node, we will create it as a node without children, as a leaf node, right? So that's why left and right will be none, meaning we signal to our algorithm, the way we wrote it, function, that it's a leaf node. We got the frequencies here, class frequencies. Remember we wrote this function in the previous lecture. Split is none, right? So it's we didn't split it yet, we didn't train the tree yet, and indices are coming from the X index here. That's fine, right? So that'll work. And then we'll, I guess, well, maybe we don't need to print it. We kind of know what's going to happen. X, Y, root 5, 5 meaning max depth 5, right? So 5 should overfit very well, right? So this should be okay. So let's run it, and this is our setup, right? So we are ready now, because make branches was the last statement called. It returned the train tree, so we supplied the root, which was leaf, but then it modified the root and made the whole tree out of it, which we printed here. So here's our tree. So to interpret it, how the prediction should work, right? So in the setup, so we come to our root, and it's already a train tree. So this is what should happen. We come to our root. Obviously, the first few parameters are the left and the right hand side of the our root, right? So that we will go there later, but we have to look at the split, right? Remember, in our data set, in our branching node, we will go right to the split and see what is the split criterion here. So we'll go here and we will see that the split criteria is column is called displacement, and the threshold is 266.9. So we will get we will take all the when we're predicting, we will look at whether for this instance which we are predicting, the displacement is lesser than 266.9. If it's lesser than 266.9 displacement, then we have to go to the left. Right, the left is here. Left is here. Right, the left is here, and that would mean. Wait a second, I went too far, right? So the left is here. So that would mean this is the tree we are looking at, right? And in this tree, we again, we see that it's a branching node because there is a left and it's not none. So it's a branching node. So we will have to go and look at the next split. The next split is again on displacement, but on the value 133. So we'll further see whether the value is 133 or less. Imagine that it was a little higher. Let's say it was 140. Well, then we have to take the right. And the right-hand tree here is the following, right? So this is the left, this is the right. We'll go to the right tree here. But guess what? This right-hand side tree, it has left and right nodes none, which means it's a leaf node, right? We agreed that if on the leaf node, if left and right are nones, then it's a leaf node. So we know this is a leaf node, means that we are not branching anymore, so we have to return. And what do we return here? Look, we are lucky. This is a pure this is a pure cell, basically pure sample, meaning that there is only 7, frequency 7 of one of the class. So the other classes frequencies are 0 and 0. So we don't have to worry, we'll just take 7. 7 is our answer. Well, 7 meaning 7 is the highest frequency, which corresponds to the class 6, right? Because 7 is in the middle, it's a second frequency, highest, that's a class 6. So our prediction for the first data for the first instance should be 6 in this silly example. That's the algorithm, right? So how are we going to implement it? So let's see. Should we use generate? No, let's just type it in. It shouldn't be that difficult, right? Okay, so let's think about what we're trying to do here. We need to write this little function, right, which will predict the data set, the instance. So imagine that we are predicting line by line. So let's say you are here, this is data set, but you are given only one line. Right, so we will learn how to predict for one line, and then we will learn how to predict for the whole data set, right? So you're given one line from this data set. Okay, great. So we will create this function called def predict one line, right? We'll call it predict one line, and it's suggesting X node. Well, I will say we will need for this only X, right? We need classes, because remember, we store classes X and Y outside of the tree, actually, right? So our classes will be outside, and that's why we need to supply it. Yes, we need the node, all right? We need to be given a node, and that should be enough to start building a tree. So how do we predict? So it says if split is none, look, it already kind of guesses what is our function, this AI. All right, so let's see if it's the right line it's suggesting or not. What is it suggesting? It's saying if node split is none, return node class frequency. Well, it's guessing it, but the guess is not exactly correct, right? Because see, this applies. What it's saying is like if you are at the leaf node, which is right? If the split is none, then it's a leaf node. So if it's a leaf node, it says just return node class frequency, but that's class frequency is not what we could actually return class frequency and then let the outside code decide what to do with frequency, get the highest frequency, but we want in predict actually do everything, right? So how do we do this? Well, that wasn't enough, right? Class frequency. So what we need to do is the following. We need to get the maximum class frequency right? So let's do the max of this thing. Max. All right, we got the max class frequency, but that isn't enough either. So we got the max class frequency, and now let's do the following. We need to get the class from classes from this attribute, which corresponds to this max frequency. So let's do. We have classes, classes, and then we'll have node. We'll have node class frequency. This class frequency. So we got classes of node class frequency, but the classes should correspond to the following: class frequency of the index. So I'll explain what do I mean by this. We can actually make AI to suggest this code to us. Max node, I think we're right. So let us see, what are we doing? It's suggesting a bunch of other code. We'll look at it later, but let's just look at this code first. This is what we're doing. The function index finds the index of the node which we are looking for, right? So this is what we're doing. Like maybe we. Yeah, let's split it out so it's more. I mean, it's very succinct code. I kind of like it, but I think for us beginner programmers, it's better to split it up into parts, right? So let's do two parts. So first, we will find the max frequency. Max frequency, and we'll call it max frequency. Right, so this is our max frequency. So what was it? In our example, in the very first case, so for instance, if we are in this node, right, 11, 7, and 14, the max frequency will be 14. So that's what we're looking for. So the max frequency just does just that, right? It gets the max frequency. Now we can replace this. It's just for legibility, like it doesn't change anything in terms of the code. Now, what is classes? So let's see. Okay, then let's call it index of max frequency, right? The index of max frequency is the following. And then we will replace this. So now I think it will be very clear. Right, so it's the same code. I just rearranged it so it's a little more, it's more verbose and looks less nice, but I think it's more clear. So this is what we're doing. We get into the class frequency, right? This guy, max node. We are in this current node, and because it's a leaf node, right, we are getting its class frequency. So suppose it's something like this. So it's not a good example here because this is the node which I'm showing here is actually a branching node. It's a parent node, it's not a leaf. Example of a leaf node would be this guy. This guy is a leaf node. So the max frequency is 1 in this case. In the right hand side, the max frequency is 7, right? So that's what we found. We found that max frequency here, suppose it was 7, this number. Then we go into, again, the same node class max frequency, the same thing here, right? And we're saying, what was the index of 7? Because unfortunately in Python, in lists, there is no function argmax, because actually we're looking for a function called argmax, but there is no argmax, so we're sort of doing this like homegrown implementation. Not a good one, by the way, but it kind of works for us, so we'll do it. So we're saying, what is the index of 7? First we found the max is 7, and then we said in this list, where is 7? Like which index 7? And it will say, well, 7 is 1, because 0 and 1. Right, so index of 7 is 1. So we found that index of 7 is 1. And then we're saying just classes, get the classes which corresponds to 1. What is the classes corresponds to 1? It's 6. So our output is going to be 6. So we are doing this, right? So it's our first it's our implementation. We just say if split is known, if it's a final node, done. Don't do anything else. else, right? Return. That's what we're telling our class, right? We just did it in a very verbose way. Okay, great. Now, while I was typing it, it suggested us like another few lines of code. What is it doing? It AI sort of thought through what I not thought. I mean, obviously AI doesn't think; it's not a thinking machine. But based on whatever the code base and internet trained AI machine suggested me the following code, right? So other people who were coding something like this probably would have coded something like that next. What is this next? Let's look at it. It actually looks right to me. All right, this is what's going on. If this was if this was a split node, meaning if this was a leaf node, then it would have returned. But what if it was not a leaf node? What if it was a parent node, branching node? Well, then we would not execute this part, right? We would go into the next part, and this is what it's doing. Well, then it says get the split column, right? So split is not known anymore. So there is a split. So like in the root here, split column, right? In this case, it's displacement. Split column is a displacement. So it says this is a split column displacement. It says go to X, your instance, and get its displacement. That's what it's saying. Get its displacement and compare whether that displacement is lesser than what? Threshold T call, and threshold T call here is 266.9. So at the very root, or at any node, like if we are at the root, it'll do this. If we are at the left branch from the root, right? If we're here, it would come to this point and say, well, compare. Again, displacement happens, so but the threshold is different, 133, right? So it would say again, displacement 133. Compare it's lesser than or not. And suppose it's lesser. If it's lesser, we have to go to the left node. How does it left node? It recursively applies the same function. It says, well, then run again myself, the same function, predict, but with X classes, and look at this. Instead of the original node, we have to go to the left. And and I'm amazed, and I'm glad that AI sort of is suggesting this. That's great. It means AI is evolving a lot. But in a way, it's not surprising because this is a very common uh, operation in coding, right? So like I said, trees are one of the most popular computer science data structures. So there must be tons of code somewhere in GitHub and other places on which this algorithm is trained, or on which AI is trained. That's why it was suggesting me this code, and the code seems to be, like I'm looking at it, it seems to be correct to me. Okay, so it seems to be correct for one line prediction. So if I'm supplying it only one line, it seems like that's what it should do. Now, why don't we test this code? So how are we going to test this code? We already built, see the root here, and we trained it, right? So let's do this. Let's create, did we train? Yeah, we already trained the tree. Maybe, yeah, maybe let's train another tree and then test it, right? Okay, this looks okay. So let me create another. Let's just copy this root. So we created another root here, clean root, and then let's train. Let's just check how trees of different depth can be run here, right? So let's create a tree of the depth number of the depths equal to 1, right? Saying predict, no, not I don't want to predict. I want to make branches, right? But I want the depth only 1. So I want only one level. So there's like a root, one branch, and leaves, right? So it stops there. I'll do that. This is T1. And then let's make a prediction here. So T1 is here. Well, it's suggesting me something interesting. Right, so this looks about right to me. Right, so we will be testing it on just one line of X. So we trained the whole thing on we trained T1 well, wait a second, I want to do a copy so I don't mess it up, right? So I will reuse this root for other things. So that's why I created the root once, and then I created the copy of this root, another copy, so that I can reuse this root. I will run make branches, and make branches actually returns me the new tree, right? So that I will put it in T1. T1 is a trained tree, but I called it T1 because it trained only on one depth. Depth was only maximum one tree, and then I'm going to predict it for just one line, right? For just one line. X classes T1 while right? So this I'm not sure why is it doing this. Yeah, I don't want to. It's testing immediately. I don't want to be testing it. I just want to do the prediction, right? So I will do predict one line classes T1, right? So this should work, I think. Let's see. Okay, there's like extra. Is right? 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, there was an extra. Sorry, there was extra one. It's predicting 4, right? So how the predicting 4 worked? So we remember it's like this is a full tree, but what if we trained only one level? Then we would have come here and looked at whether the displacement was lesser than 266.9. So I don't remember what was the displacement, but we can pull it from empty car. So very first line, Mazda RX, right, is going to be with displacement 160, which is lesser than 266.9. So it should go to the left side of the tree, right? So it should go to the left branch of the tree, and the left branch is here, but here the left branch is branching further because we built a tree of big depth. But in this case I'm testing only one, depth 1, right? So I will ignore all these like left rights, and then where is it, left, and then there is a right. I'll ignore all of this and just look at the frequencies, and look at the frequencies. Frequencies here were I believe 1, 7, and 0, so it should have returned 6, but it's returning 4. So let's test it. Let's see why is it doing so. Print. We will print that first ilog. We will see exactly what was our it was Mazda RX, right? Displacement was 160, so it should have been the left branch. Right. Well, let's print the tree here, T1. It was left branch. We'll print the T1 and see what was the tree here. Right, so it's a very simple tree. We started with 11.7.4, split displacement to 66.9. We go to the left side, and the left side frequencies should be the following. Oh yeah, I made a mistake, right? When I was saying even here, the left-hand side frequencies, I think I missed the frequencies, right? So we came here. All right, so this tree we cannot use because this was a tree used for this was a deep tree, right? And we want to go with a shallow tree, and in the shallow tree the frequencies were 11, 7, and 0. So 11 is the frequency of highest frequency, and that corresponds to obviously 4. That's why the answer was 4. So seems to be working, right? So let's try a tree of depth 2. Like this, right? So depth will be 2. Well, it's just like we'll keep repeating it so that I don't have to rewrite the code. Nah, I guess I have to. I'll T2, and then we'll print T2. we are testing the code, right? Creating some test cases here. Okay, so in the second case, the answer was 6. Why was the answer 6? Let's see. All right, so we came to this tree which we built, right? And the first tree was 266. We know. Then we go to the left, right? And when we go to the left, we notice this is the left side of the tree. This is a branching tree, so we have to go and find the split for this tree, right? So this was the left. Split was wait a second. It's a little hard to read here. This was the left. Let's find actually. Left, right. I believe it's like this, right? Left. Right, so this was 11.1174, but look at the split. The next split was on MPG. So we wanted MPG to be compared to 21.45. So let's see. MPG for this thing was 21.0, and we're comparing it to 21.45. So it means it has to go to the left, right? Because it's lesser. So MPG is lesser than 21.45. So it'll go to the left-hand side, which is here. And on the left-hand side, look at the class split on the left-hand side. Class split is 170, and that because the depth was 2, that's the final node, terminal node, leaf node. The maximum frequency is at 7, so it has to return 6, and it does return 6. So it seems like it's working. I didn't like you can when you write the code like this, you have to obviously create a lot of test cases and see whether each one of them is behaving exactly the way you want it. So great, right? We were able to predict one line. So if we are given one instance, we know how to predict. But now I want to learn how to predict a whole bunch of instances. Like if we're given like 10 instances, like an array, right? So how do we do that? So let's learn that.